So today Radhika sent me the bones. Let us say thank you to her, and then let us continue with revising the osteology of pelvis on the real bone. You see, you have to put your web space in the greater sciatic notch and hold the pelvis like this. Then you have to place this pubic symphysis in the sagittal plane and bend it 45 degrees. So this is the anatomical position of the pelvis. After understanding the anatomical position, we will move on to the boundaries and keep on telling you what is it and what is attached there. So this is the pubic symphysis. It's a symphysis, it's a joint. Then you have the pubic crest. The pyramidalis muscle going to the linea alba is attached here. This is the pubic tubercle. On this pubic tubercle is attached the inguinal ligament. Connecting the ASIS to the pubic tubercle. This inguinal ligament has 4 parts. This is the inguinal part. Then you have a lacunar part. Then you have a pectineal part, and then you have ligamentum reflexa. Now from here emerges the obturator artery, the obturator foramen, and this gives an accessory obturator branch which goes like this across the lacunar ligament and then comes behind here. So this accessory obturator artery arises out of the inferior epigastric, comes along the inguinal ligament, then on the lacunar ligament, and then goes and meets the obturator artery. Importance is that there is a femoral hernia here, so you don't cut medial, otherwise you will cut this artery, and it bleeds from both ends, and therefore it is also called as corona mortis. It is called as a bundle of tissue which can bleed a person to death. So it's also called as corona mortis. Very, very important when you are trying to approach this region in fractures. Okay. So after this lacunar ligament and the inguinal ligament part, we come to a notch. In this notch lies medialmost the lymph node of Plauquet, then the femoral vein, and then the femoral artery. Now you have to puncture the femoral vein to get blood out of it, especially in a child or a neonate. And if that needle somehow goes into the hip, then there can be septic arthritis of the hip, which can cause a lot of fever and neonatal deaths. And at least it can damage the ossific nucleus of the head so that you have a pathological fracture later on. So this is the lymph node of Plauquet, the vein and the artery and the nerve. Then you have a pectineal eminence here. Under this pectineal eminence is lying the foramen, the obturator, the acetabulum. So this pectineal eminence is recognition of the acetabulum. Any fracture here in the pectineal eminence is in the acetabulum. Then you have another notch here. In this other notch would pass the psoas muscle, Then you have the anterophiliac spine. From this arises a ligament which goes and attaches to the intertrochanteric line of the femur, and this ligament is called as the Y-shaped ligament of Bigelow. Another thing that arises from this is the straight head of rectus femoris. The reflected head arises from just above the acetabulum. So the reflected and straight head of rectus femoris. Anterophiliac spine fades. Then you have this portion. Then you have this portion. This one. This gives rise to iliacus. Then you have the anterophiliac spine, the inguinal ligament on this side, and sartorius muscle also coming like this. Now the peculiarity of this is that when the inguinal ligament is attached here, under it would pass the lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh. Sometimes the nerve passes through the ligament, and so when the ligament is stretched, as you extend the thigh, this nerve is pressed, and there are paresthetic sensations along the anterolateral aspect of thigh, and there may be also hypoesthesia. So this condition is called as meralgia paresthetica. Then we go on to the iliac crest. Now you see the iliac crest, okay? You would find the iliac crest is convex outwards in the anterior, convex outwards in the anterior 2/3, and concave outward in the posterior 1/3. The iliac crest consists of 3 lips. The 3 lips are internal lip, transversus abdominis, the innermost abdominal muscle, the intermediate lip, the internal oblique, and the outer lip, the external oblique. But on the outer lip there is a iliac tuberosity, from which arises a tensor fascial arch, which converts into the iliotibial band and goes and gets inserted into the head of the fibula. Then in this area is attached an epineurosis, from which the transverse abdominis and internal oblique arise, and that is called as the thoracolumbar fascia. In the posterior 1/3 of the iliac crest, you divide it into 2. On the outer side is the latissimus dorsi, on the inner side is the quadratus lumborum. So, arising from the fascia covering the quadratus lumborum and giving origin to internal oblique and transversus abdominis is this fascia, thick fascia here, which is called as thoracolumbar fascia, or epineurosis rather. If you want to reach it from the outside, you will face the latissimus dorsi posterior border and external oblique anterior border. So actually you will face here the latissimus dorsi from this place going up like this, and the external oblique going up like this, and therefore this triangle is called as the lumbar triangle of Petit. Then you have the posterior sacroiliac spine. On it is attached the iliolumbar ligament, which connects the posterior sacroiliac spine to the transverse process of L5. Okay, and this posterior sacroiliac spine is visible from the posterior aspect, and you can see whether the pelvis is tilted or not by seeing whether the line joining the posterior inferior iliac spine is horizontal or not. Okay, then there is one more test, that on the line which joins the posterior inferior iliac spine, if you draw a right bisector or a perpendicular of 10 centimeters with the lumbar spine fully flexed, it should cross 16 centimeters. Now if it doesn't, that means there is a triplane limitation of movement of the lumbar spine. Now that test is called as the Schober's test. Then you have a notch here, and the posterior inferior iliac spine. Then you have a notch. This is the posterior sacroiliac spine. You have a notch here, and you have this posterior inferior iliac spine. On the inner side of this, you would find a process which is an auricular process. This is like the ear, the auricle. So this is the auricular process. On this is attached the horizontal and the vertical component of the ala of the sacrum. Behind you have a very strong ligament, which is the dorsal tuberosity, and on this is attached the dorsal sacroiliac ligament. Then you have a greater sciatic notch. From it is passing the piriformis, which is going to go, which is like this. The piriformis comes out from the sacrum. Sacrum is here. So it comes out from the sacrum, passes through the greater sciatic notch and gets inserted onto the tip of the trochanter, greater trochanter. So any structure passing from the greater sciatic notch is above it, this side, or below it. Above it is the superior gluteal artery, vein and nerve. Below is the inferior gluteal artery, vein and nerve, 3 nerves and pin structures. So before we understand these structures, we place the sacrum here. Imagine a sacrum like this, and from this, from the greater sciatic notch and the sacrum arises the sacrotuberous ligament attached to the tuberosity here. Okay, so this is the sacrotuberous ligament, and then you have a sacrospinous ligament. So these 2 ligaments would convert these notches into foramen. So greater sciatic notch, piriformis passes arising from the sacrum, going out from the greater sciatic notch, attached to the tip of the trochanter. Above the piriformis emerges the superior gluteal artery, vein and nerve. The superior gluteal artery, vein and nerve, like this. Below the piriformis emerges the inferior gluteal artery, vein and nerve. Then you have 3 nerves: the sciatic, the posterior cutaneous nerve of thigh, and nerve to quadratus femoris. And then finally the pin structures: the pudendal nerve, the internal pudendal artery, and the nerve to obturator internus. Now these pin structures emerge out of the greater sciatic notch and go back into the lesser sciatic notch. And therefore this is a way that they bypass the levator ani, which forms the pelvic diaphragm here. So they go out from this and come into the perineum. So from pelvis to perineum, they emerge out of the greater sciatic notch and come back through the lesser sciatic notch. Okay. Now below this, below the lesser sciatic notch, you come to a ischial tuberosity. It has a quadrangular space and it has a triangular space. So this quadrangular space is divided by a line like this into a superolateral and an inferomedial portion. From the superolateral portion arises the biceps femoris. From the inferomedial arises the semimembranosus and semitendinosus. Then from the triangular portion, from the outer half arises the ischial head of adductor magnus, and from the inner half lies the Alcock's canal. And then you have, after the ischial tuberosity, you have the ischiopubic ramus, which attaches the perineal membrane, the superior and the inferior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm, and on this is related the superficial and the deep perineal pouch. Finally, in the inferior part of the pubic symphysis, you have a dorsal ligament of penis, which is pierced by the dorsal vein of penis, which goes into the bladder. So when the bladder is distended, then this vein is unable to drain blood from the penis, and you can lead to an erection of the penis. In paraplegia, when the bladder is not distended, then this erection can become painful, and that is called as priapism. So we've covered the boundaries of the pelvis, and we have to cover the inner and the outer area in the next turn. Thank you.